Hey, here we go, going live.
Tell me what to do to make all my lake dreams come true.
Hello, everybody. Bob Lust, the Pond Boss, coming at you live right here from the world headquarters of Pond Boss Magazine in Gordonville, Texas, right here at the intersection of Heritage Road and 377. Look at there. Go figure. Jason Nepstad, I see he's up first to bat. Zach Bollinger up. Hey, man, good to see you guys. Had a really fun conversation with Jason yesterday, and he said, man, hey, Bob, I watched that show. There's Billy Bates. Yo, buddy. And he said, I was really excited to watch the show where you talk about raising trophy bass, but you never did get to the topic. Well, he's right. I didn't. There's Adam Chandler, Torrey Rhodes. Hey, Torrey, good to see you. Adam, good to see you, buddy. So I'm going to tackle that topic. Plus, if I remember, and maybe Jason can help me remember, he wants me to talk about the differences between Threadfin shad and Gizzard shad, which I can do that. So you guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section. Click like. Share this video to your timeline, and you're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug that knows how to, say it with me, I want to hear everybody say it, keep hot things hot and cold things cold. We don't know how it does it, but it does it. And by the way, Leanne did the drawing this week. Woohoo! She drew Steve Lewis's name. So Steve, good friend of ours, we've known Steve a long time, Fisheries Biologist over there in Hot Springs, Arkansas, recently retired from the Parks and Wildlife, or the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. He's a crackerjack fish producer. So congratulations. We're going to send him up. But you know what? Hey, Steve, when you start watching this, we don't have your address. So I want to send you this hat and this mug right here, but need your mailing address. I may have it somewhere, but just send it to info@pondboss.com. Looky there. Let's see here. Jacob West is up. I see that. John Funk. Holy cow, he's over in Michigan where dams are blowing out. Oh, my gosh. I read that. I read what you sent me about Midland, Michigan. Good gosh, man. I hope you guys are good. That's really, really weird stuff going on over there. Let's see here. Let me see who all's on here with us before I get hot into this topic. Let's see here. Daniel Joseph Thompson. You got 3 names, dude. Happy Wednesday. Good to see you. Gene Barbara Saunders. Good to see Gene and Barbara. I see Josie on here. Josie and Wayne, I love, it's just so much fun to me to know that Josie and Wayne they do their Wednesday evening date nights watching this show, reading your questions and listening to me talk about it. Except the catch today is Josie's not in Texas, she's in Florida, but Wayne, wait a minute, he came in from New Jersey to Texas only to find out that Josie's gone. So they're still hanging out, sharing something adult to drink and having a conversation, texting back and forth as they're watching this show. You know, it's one of the fun things about this show that I love is I'm starting to see relationships build among the audience members, which that's fun to me. Jason Nepstad suggested that we do a Pond Boss group, which I think I'm going to do that. I just need to learn more about it. Zach Bollinger wants to know if we can talk about spinners and white suckers. Sure. What do you want to talk about? Spinners or white? I can talk about white sucker. White suckers are a really good forage fish to raise great big bluegill. Great big bass, especially in the northern tier of states. They're not so hard to raise. There's Glenn May. Hey, check out bassresource.com. That's Glenn May's baby. It's one of the best bass fishing websites on the World Wide Web. www. Hats off to me, sir, Jacob West says. Andy Annings is on there. Let's see here. Christopher Aguilar. I saw him soliciting employees today. I'm having a Coca-Cola on ice, guys. Bear with me. I know there's going to be a question on that. So let's see here. I'm going to scroll down here and see what else is going on. Karen Lucas, hi, Bob. Tyler Lucas here from Prosper. Good to see you, Tyler. We've been having some conversations. David Schneiderman. David Schneiderman was one of the attendees of the very first Bob Lusk Institute of Higher Pondology, and he's also our dealer for Easy Docks. So if you're looking for a floating dock, check in with David. David's a stellar guy, He's right on top of things, and he will be right there with you. Kenneth Primo's checking in. Kevin Briggs, good to see you. Yeah, and Zach, Christopher's, he's eating some boudin, I know it. I can just kind of feel it. Kevin Briggs is checking in. Kevin's been sending some cool pictures of fish that they're catching in ditches over there in North Carolina. They've got some really cool fish in North Carolina. You never see them unless you're seining them or catching them in a net. Mike Dower, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine, that a boy. Shane McIntyre, hey Shane, good to see you, brother. Let's see, Jason Ebstad, I don't see many schools of gizzard shad. Got me thinking maybe threadfin will be more apt to stay in large schools, filling the void in the open water and pulling wipers and bass into schools while feeding on the threadfin. Michael Gray checking in from the front seat. He's almost playing a video game from that big seat in that track hoe. He's either pounding rock or digging dirt. I just know he is because the sun's still up. But he's there. So welcome, Michael Gray. Harrison Davis checking in from Norcross, Georgia. Jerry Ollert, one of the world's greatest videographers. He's put together all kinds of TV shows. So let me see. I'm going to scroll back down here. Holy cow, things are getting out of hand, and I'm supposed to be talking about raising trophy bass. You guys are fun. This is so much fun. Let's see here. Woo-wee. Okay, Zach, I'm not sure what you want to talk about with spinners. Well, I don't know. When you say spinners, to me that means spinner baits. When you talk about white suckers are actually fairly easy to propagate. I could talk about that, but the thing I love about white suckers is they don't get really big. 8 to 10 inches is a big one. They're perfect food for largemouth bass, especially largemouth bass that are 16 or 17 inches or bigger. They're perfect to use to help raise trophy bass. You know what? I'm going to take a few minutes and talk about trophy bass. I see 27 new comments, so I'm already behind. Bear with me. I'm going to catch up in a minute. So, rather than being scolded for not staying on topic, I'm going to handle the topic, and then I'm going to handle your questions and your thoughts. So here we go. While I'm having a little bit of Coca-Cola mixed with something. I don't know what it is. Well, actually, I do. But raising trophy bass, you've got, here's the take-home points I want you to start with. You've got 2 jobs. Job number 1 is to get as many bass up to 17 inches as fast as you can. Now, keep in mind, the only trophy largemouth bass that you're ever going to have are going to be females. So you can take half of the fish that you start with and throw them in the trash, so to speak. You're not going to throw them in the trash. But because they're boys. Boys are not going to get very big. The girls are. But only a percentage of those girls are going to get very big. So that's going to influence your stocking rates if you're stocking a brand new lake to try to grow trophy bass. But in order to grow trophy bass, you got to have outstanding genetics. You got to be able to produce the food to support the best of the best. Fish are not any different than any other livestock. What's going to happen is a percentage of them are going to excel in that body of water. Now, if we compared your body of water to her body of water or his body of water, yours are going to produce fish differently. Every pond's different. But the fish that are most conducive to thriving in your environment will, if they have the right genetics, they have the propensity, they have the food chain, and the opportunity, meaning that they don't get eaten by another fish too fast. So, to grow trophy bass, you got to understand it's got to be a female. It's got to have all the food it needs every day of its life. If a bass, or any game fish for that matter, it can be a tiger muskie, it can be a walleye, it can be a smallmouth or a yellow perch. If it misses a meal for more than about 4 or 5 days in a row, it can't make that up. So part of your job in the management side of things is to be sure that those fish have the food chain, have the genetics, have the opportunity, healthy water, great habitat. All those elements come together, and when you preserve and protect the best of your bass. I remember something I told Bill Dance years ago. He loved it, and it's one of my little go-to phrases. A 4-pound bass cannot grow to 10 pounds in a skillet. So selective harvest, I'll go ahead and laugh. It's pretty funny. I know, I get it. But you got to know that if you don't protect the best of your best fish, Those are the fish that have the chance or have the best propensity or the best chance to grow as big as they can get. Your job is to protect them, preserve them, feed them, provide them habitat, and keep their water clean. If you do those things, you're going to be able to grow some really big fish. Now, here's the catch. What I said a while ago is job one is to get them up to about 17 or 18 inches as fast as you can. If you can do that, then the whole game changes. An 18-inch bass weighs 3¼ pounds as a standard weight. Okay, so an 18-inch bass that's normal weighs 3¼ pounds. Now, if you think about that, an 18-inch bass is either a female that's growing fast and is young, or it's a male. If it's a male at 18 inches, that's huge. Males typically don't get much bigger than 1.5 to 2 pounds. So if you got any bass that you've got that's 18 inches deserves a shot at growing bigger. Now, I'm not telling you to not harvest 18-inch bass at some point in your management strategy, but what I am telling you is a bass that gets to be 18 inches is likely a female, and you want to protect those fish. Now, think about this. And what's an 18-inch female bass going to, what's a 3-pound bass going to eat? Talk to me. I'm listening. I'm not hearing anything. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to hear anything. You do this in writing. So send me something. Holy cow, there's 40 new comments I haven't even looked at. Bear with me. I have to get a different cup to match that wall behind me. My wife will see that and she'll say something. So, a 3-pound or 3¼ pound bass can eat a 10-inch bass. It can eat a gizzard, shad. Here's where I'm going, is once those bass hit about 18 inches, their food habits change. A big bass wants to eat a big meal. An 8-pound bass would much rather eat a 1-pound bass than try to eat 10 4-ounce bluegills. So part of your job as a manager to grow trophy bass is to make sure that you have the right size forage fish. So now here's where I'm going to transition into what Jason was talking about, threadfin shad compared to gizzard shad. Now here I'm going to tell you this, listen to me. Threadfin shad can reproduce so prolifically and so often, and they live in open water. They're filter feeders. Their mouth points up. So when they swim through the water, they're sucking water in. They've got these big, long gill rakers in their gills that funnel food down their throat. So when they're breathing, and threadfin shad don't have air bladders, so they have to swim or they're going to sink. If they sink, then they die. So they're going to continually swim, and they're continually filtering water through their gills. That's to breathe, but also they're filtering out the microscopic plankton, algae, zooplankton, small insects, whatever, that they can get out of the water, what's there, and then they cross the gill rakers, which funnels it down their throat and allows them to feed. So when threadfin shad reproduce, they reproduce at daylight, 30 minutes before daylight to about an hour after daylight, and they're sticking their eggs on weeds around the perimeter of the lake. So if you're trying to grow threadfins, you need substrate for them to be able to reproduce successfully. And then as the babies start to grow, they move out into deeper water, and they're forming schools. There might be 10,000 little 1-inch threadfin shad in a school, and then as they grow up and become a little bit more significant, the school gets bigger. That's what attracts 10 to 14-inch bass out into open water. And those 10 to 14-inch bass, when they see a school of threadfin shad, they'll investigate, then they'll explode on them. The shad blow up, they flush, and they go in 35, 40,000 different directions while those 10 to 14-inch bass are trying to feed on them. So threadfin shad's #1 role is to feed those 10 to 14-inch largemouth bass. Now listen to this. Every single trophy largemouth bass lake that I've ever managed or that I will manage, at some point we add gizzard shad. Now here's the caveat to that. I want at least 25% of the biomass of largemouth bass to be 3.5 pounds or bigger. Gizzard shad reproduce 1 time a year. They throw lots of eggs, 250,000 eggs, and the babies grow so fast that they can outgrow their function if you don't have enough big bass to keep their numbers in check. So I want at least, if we got a lake that we estimate there to be 75 pounds of largemouth bass per acre, I want at least 25% of that to be bass 3.5 pounds or bigger. Then we'll stock gizzard shad, because then I know that we've got enough big bass to help keep the gizzard shad numbers in check. Now, for Jason, I love you, buddy. Here's the deal on that. If you allow the gizzard shad to become too crowded and they get so big that the majority of the bass can't eat them, they give off a pheromone that inhibits their reproduction. And once they get dense enough, they give off a pheromone that can inhibit other fish's reproduction. So that can throw the brakes on the food chain. So you need to be thoughtful about how you handle gizzard shad in a trophy bass lake. So now the thing about growing trophy bass is you really need to be able to figure out which fish are the best of your best. So I really love tagging those fish. Now personally, I'd like to pit tag those fish. Now pit tag, you got to buy a reader that costs $850. Each pit tag costs $3.25. But how much is a 9-pound bass worth? You know, so I mean, some of our more high-end clients, they're totally on board to be able to monitor the growth rates of their biggest bass. You know, other than that, if you'll weigh and measure some fish as you go along, then you can select which fish need to be kept. At some point, every single bass lake, you gotta cull bass. Now, Jason, I'm talking straight to you now. With your lake in Fayetteville, North Carolina, you're on the upswing trying to grow as many fish as you can. You're getting ready to buy more bass because you're pretty convinced that you don't have enough bass. I think it's smart to add more bass because you want to fill in the slots of fish that are missing. You want 3 or 4 or 5 different size classes of bass. And with the budget that you guys have, which is a little bit short, which that's life. I mean, that's the way it works. Stocking these fish is a wise thing. But before long, when I say before long, let me make sure we all know what that means. Before long, meaning within the next 6 months, you need to be weighing and measuring some bass and tracking their growth rates. You know, as you're feeding your bluegill. You know, if you want to stock some Threadfins, get it done. I think that's great because that'll help give some of those bass that you stocked last year a jump start to jump into that 17, 18, 19-inch size class, which is exactly what you need. So, raising trophy bass means that you preserve the best of the best. You've got to be sure you provide the best of the best with the right food that they need. You need to be culling bass that aren't performing or young ones that don't fit into the mold or don't fit into your management plan. I would feed the heck out of those bluegill, feed the heck out of the threadfin shad, make sure the water's fertile, make the lake as productive as it can. So here we are. I just gave you, what? Holy cow, 6:48. What's that? 28, 30, I don't know, 18, whatever, how much time it is. 28, 30, no, 18 minutes. Ooh, my math brain's a little slow. I just gave you 18 minutes worth of 41 years of figuring this out. So, preserve the best of the best. Make sure they have the food they need. Cull when it's appropriate. Bluegill are the backbone of the food chain. Threadfins give them a jump start. Gizzard shad help increase the, provide you a food chain for the best of your fish once they hit, enough of them hit that 18-inch size class. Holy cow. Ooh, that was fast paced. Let's see here. Let me back up. Good gosh, things are flying by here. Glenn May, thank you, sir. Shane McAdee, great show. Hey, Glenn, dude, I don't know what you guys are doing in Washington when your damn governor said you can't go bass fishing. What? You know, this Corona thing, I wish I had a Corona right now. I'd put a lime in it and I'd drink it with you guys. Just glad I don't have the Corona, which I bet you don't either. Hey, raise your hand. How many of you know somebody that's got the coronavirus or has had it? I can't raise my hand up, and I have yet to talk to anybody that knows anybody that has that disease. Now, granted, I live in North Texas in a rural county, and you know the people I know are pretty well staying away from all this stuff. But I'm about ready for it to end. I'm about ready to go out to eat with my wife again. Todd Austin, Dick Tabbert, Leanne's checking in. Leanne, I got your note. Steve Lewis is the winner of the Pond Boss hat and the Pond Boss mug that knows how to. Jacob West is out there saying it right now. I can hear him. How to keep hot things hot and cold things cold. Hey, you know what? The May-June issue is in the mailboxes. There's some great articles. The last couple of days, I've been hot and heavy into writing the July-August issue of Pond Boss. And, you know, it's really fun because every time I sit down and start to write the magazine, Leanne wants me to have an editorial calendar, which I don't do that. When I'm ready to sit down and write the magazine, I look at what the different writers are presenting. I figure out how can I enhance that, what's the season, and what needs to be written about that particular season, and then it all seems to come together. Now listen, I'm really excited about the July-August issue of Pond Boss. We've decided in our 28th year, 28 years, good gosh, we've been publishing this magazine a long time. If you're not a subscriber to Pond Boss magazine, I want to shame you into subscribe. No, I don't want to shame you. I want to encourage you. No. Yeah, that's it. You need to buy the subscription. It's $35 a year. $35, that's nothing compared to what you get out of it. You know, now the next issue, and this is, right now is the time to subscribe. If you haven't, do it now. Go to pondboss.com, click on the subscribe button, and subscribe to the magazine. Pull your credit card out. Get on it. Subscribe. We're going to change the layout of the magazine. We're going to change the way that it flows. I've added some new topics, some new, we've got a couple of new columns. And it's an exciting time because the look of the magazine is going to change way for the better. And you guys are going to like it, I promise. So climb on board. Subscribe to Pond Boss. It's worth it. Just because of the 3 or 4 nuggets you might get out of each issue, it's going to help you with your pond. Look at there. I see Robin checking in. Clark Cole's in. Geez, I'm so far behind. Hey, there's Mike DeMint checking in all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. Let's see. Holy cow, we got people talking to each other. I'm behind. Holy cow. Let me catch up here. 78 new comments. Woo! 62 people watching. Is that right? Yeah. Holy cow. Woo! Man. All right. So now Christopher Aguilar got his Pond Boss. Clark Cole. Billy Bates. I've been trying to get my 4-acre pond going for trophy bass. I've been catching all the crappie I can to get them out. Ooh, it disappeared. I have been culling the 10 to 14-inch bass. I have northern bluegill for forage. I want to add a new species of forage. What's your suggestion? Pond is filled with lily pads, approximately 1/3 surface acre during spring. In summer is lily pads. Okay, what's next for me? For species and next management tip. Okay, I'll tell you what you do, Billy Bates. If you haven't added any native, and there was my wife trying to call me on a Wednesday, knowing that I'm doing this broadcast. She is hanging out with daughter Ashley, who's about to give birth to our 12th, count them, 12 grandchildren. So let's see here. What can Billy Bates do? Billy Bates, if you don't, I apologize because I don't remember where you are, but on a 4-acre pond, keep culling, feed the bluegills. If you're not feeding, feed Aquamax Sportfish MVP. That's a good choice for you to do. Make sure you've got crawfish. I don't know if tilapia are legal where you are. Depending on where you are, Threadfin Shad are a good choice. But until you get some numbers of bigger bass in there, avoid Gizzard Shad. But culling is the biggest deal you can do. Tracy Smith, good to see you. Zach says, I know we're in uncharted waters, but are you going to have another? Yeah, we're going to have another Institute of Higher Pondology. And the way things are shaping up, I'm going to tell you what I think about this. If the NFL isn't ready to have football games, if we're not going to have college football games, if I can't go to Billy Bob's Texas and dance in Fort Worth, if the Texas Rangers aren't going to allow people to watch the games, I'm going to stand down and watch what all these entities are going to do. Right now, my gut is that we're going to have the next Institute of Higher Pondology in October. Now, we've got some guys standing by that have already paid their money. We've refunded some money, but those guys that are standing by, I'm looking at maybe the second week of October. That's what I'm looking at because that's a good time of the year. The weather's moderate. We're at the end of our production year, so we can see some of the results of some of these lakes around here. I've got one lake under management right over there. Right there, about 3 miles from here. We're going to go evaluate that lake so you guys can see what's going on. So yes, no doubt about it, we're going to have it. Tracy Smith, howdy. Mark Primo came to the one in October. Good to see Mark. Frank James. Frank James had his electrofishing survey. I saw that. There's Danny Mack. Look at there. Glenn May. Billy Bates talking about bluegills. Danny Mack. Yes, he is. Clark Cole, 5-inch bluegill. Bam. Everybody's saying bluegills. 10-inch bass would do just fine. Holy cow, man. Kevin Briggs. Cool info. Calvin Perry, go for it. The question, with the shad spawn going on, uh-oh. Holy cow, my dadgum stuff is scrolling so fast I can't get to it. Calvin Perry, go for it. Question, with the shad spawn going on, probably winding down in many places, what is the one thing that you think more bass fishermen should know about the shad spawn that they usually don't know? Okay, so if I'm a bass angler and you're asking me about threadfin, if you're asking me about threadfin shad spawn at daylight. Now, threadfin shad are basically open water fish, but they come to the shore to reproduce. So it's very common for a bass to blow up on spawning shad. So if you're in the middle of the shad spawn, think about fishing like a rattle trap that looks like a shad, throw it in shallow water at daylight right against the bank. But as soon as daylight's over, 8 o'clock, 8:30, the shad are going to start moving deeper. And they're moving together in unison in a school. So mark them on your depth finder and study them. Watch their movement. If you've got good electronics, you can see those threadfin shad clump together and they're moving through the water column. You can also see them blow up when the bass hit them. So if you got a rattle trap and you can get down into that depth wherever they are, it might be 6 feet deep, it might be 25 feet deep. Look at that. Otherwise, if the bass are not chasing threadfins, they're going to be after a sunfish pattern or they're going to be after a crawfish pattern. So I'm a guy that raises fish more so than catches the fish, so I'm going to kind of leave that to you. There's your fishing tip. Fishing tip from the Pond Boss. Steve Lewis said he joined. Hey, Stevie Wonder, buddy. Hey, you're the winner. You're the winner. We need your address. You got a hat and you got a mug coming. So info@pondboss.com. Your name was drawn today. You are the winner of a hat and a mug. So email your address to info@pondboss.com and Leanne will get those things in the mail to you. Let's see, Harrison Davis, he says, look at that, there's Bobby Bolton. Hey, Bobby, good to see you, man. I'm sorry I'm behind, but I'm behind, so we're going to catch up. Coca-Cola came from world headquarters of Coke here in Atlanta. Let me look here. Let's see here. No, wait a minute. Oh, there's a code. Fort Worth. Yeah, it came from Atlanta. Let's see here. Frank James says the video is frozen again and again. So frustrating. Wish I could help you. I don't know what to tell you, man. But it looks like it's flowing pretty smooth here. Bridget West. Good to see you, Bridget. Billy Bates, I'm in Maryland. By the way, Bob, with the biggest bass I've caught in the pond, and 5 1/4. Dude, you ought to be able to beat that. Beat that. Feed your bluegills. If you feed your bluegills in Maryland, you're going to have a shot at 2 spawns a year. Look at white suckers. Look at golden shiners to diversify your food chain in Maryland. I think those 2 choices would be good. Dick Tabbert, how about shad in Northwest Ohio? Any ideas? Avoid thread fins. They're going to die too soon in there. Now, there are some, golly, Dick, in Northwest Ohio. Scuds are good. Golly, I'm trying to remember. There's a shad-like fish in Northwest Ohio, and I can't think of the name of it, but I probably will later. There's Tim Stewart checking in. Let's see. Christopher Aguilar called a bass with an abnormality in his tail last week. That's good. Thanks for sharing that. Justin Shank. Hi, Bob. I got my property finally. Got 2 small ponds, about 1/3 of an acre each. Woo. What's the best species for ponds this size? Channel cats and bluegill. We probably ought to have a conversation, but 1/3 of an acre, if you're feeding feed train bass, you can do that there. But channel catfish and hybrid bluegill are probably a better choice. Justin, tell me where the ponds are. I know you were looking in Mississippi, somewhere in the Delta region. If you did that, then I'm going to tell you something different. But if it's in California, I'm going to tell you something even more different. Hey, John Wilson, I don't know what you're doing since there is no baseball. Glenn May says, and keep records. That's a great idea. Dion Myers, Tim Stewart, cull things that eat big bass, like otters. Okay. Glenn May knows somebody that died from it. Man, I hate that. And of course, Washington's a hot spot. That's where Glenn lives. David Harris knows somebody. Billy Bates, no Corona, Southern Maryland, he knows of. Kevin Briggs, he had a friend die. An older guy. Wow. Tim Stewart knows several people. Tim is he's from New Jersey. Nathan Grigsby, I have a friend whose cow died from it in Central Texas. What? Okay. Tim Stewart knows some that have died and many that have recovered. John Deaton, don't know of anyone that knows anyone. Well, and there's Joe Kalina. You know, and I'm not trying to make light of this. Here's what and I don't get into politics. I mean, I do get into politics. I love politics because I hate politics. But I don't offer that opinion to anybody. But I do know this, that if we keep the economy shut down, if we keep the United States shut down, how's that going to help? And I can't come up with an answer for that. So herd immunity is going to be an answer. I mean, that's what we do with fish. And as a biologist, I totally get how herd immunity works. And if I get that disease and die, I'm out. Peace, love, I'm out. Those that make it, they're going to be able to go on and live a decent, normal life until the next pandemic 100 years from now. Okay, well, you know what? I didn't mean to stir up a hornet's nest, but by golly, I did, so we're going to live with it. Mark Dyer, Nebraska. Nathan Grigsby, his uncle died from it. He's in Central Texas. All right, Mark Dyer, he had it, and it went through his family. Lasted about 1.5 to 2 weeks. His flu symptoms, 3 to 4 cruddy days. Really like a prolonged flu from my family. We were fortunate to not have breathing trouble. I'm going to presume that was diagnosed. Danny Mack says, I can't believe I'm saving this issue because of isolation. Yep. Oop. Well, I did kind of open up a little can of worms here. Peggy James, I have fed, limed, fertilized, stock fatted minnows, threadfin shad, harvested bass, stock forage size, RBK, I don't know what that is, and still can't grow largemouth bass with a relative weight above 100. On the verge of giving up. Had great success with RBK. I don't know what, RBK. I am so sorry I don't know that. Hybrid striped bass, redder sunfish, copper-nosed bluegill, tilapia, but not bass. Maybe some ponds just aren't suitable for largemouth bass. You know what? That's a fair statement. Some ponds are just not suitable for largemouth bass. And sometimes it takes time. But I'm going to tell you this. If you're culling properly and you're providing the right amount of food, largemouth bass have a tendency to respond to that. So it's easy to say that the pond is the problem, and that could very well be the case. Because if it grows other fish well and bass just are not performing, that could be the case. However, I don't know that I'd give up yet, because let's have a conversation. Send me an email at info@pondboss.com and let's talk. I'll be driving Friday morning for a little bit, so I will have some time to talk on the phone, and that helps make a trip go better anyway. Holy cow, 104 comments. I see Debbie Dobbs-Lusk is checked in. Honey, I didn't take your call because I'm doing the live broadcast. Mark Dyer, good. Calvin Perry, go for it. I've seen 5 cases of COVID so far, but I'm a nurse at a big hospital near the Houston Medical Center. So my perception is a bit different. Here's what I do know. It spreads easily. A very large percentage of people have it with no or minimal symptomology or morbidity. A small minority get hospitalized. Most of those survive. If you end up intubated and on a vent, the chances of survival are remote. Yeah, you know what? I've kind of come to that same conclusion. If somebody ends up on a ventilator, their odds go down. Okay, Cajun Pond Management needs to cap in Aguilar. There's Kelly Duffy. Hey, Kelly, I rang your number today. If you got time to call me back, holler back at me tomorrow because I got a couple of questions. I've got a client down the road that needs to take care of some vegetation, and I want to help him with it. Tanya, John, Red are checking in. Outdoor Water Solutions. Check them out. Windmill aeration systems, solar-powered battery aeration systems. Those guys have got it going on. Let's see here. Steve Ford is referring us. Good deal. Mark Hicks, Steve Lewis, you bet. Woo, Danny Mack, you're about to complete with NASCAR, watching both. NASCAR's running tonight? What in the world am I thinking? Ryan Newman is a friend of mine. And when I saw his wreck at Daytona, oh my gosh, I was petrified by that. I waited 5 or 6 days and I texted him just to see how he was doing. He texted me right back just before he was dismissed from the hospital. And he's been sending me pictures of his kids and the fish they're catching over at his place. He lives in Statesville, North Carolina. I love that guy. He's rock solid. And I'm going to put a picture of him in the next issue of Pond Boss. Great guy. Let's see here. Zach Bollinger says, what's the pros and cons of mountain streams in south central Pennsylvania? The pros are is you can grow some great fish. The cons are is you can't grow all the fish you want. You know, so I don't really know how to answer that question other than if you got good, clean, healthy, cool water, you're going to have cool water fishery. If you got good, clean, warm water, you can have a warm water fishery. And it depends on the volume of flow, how the food chain develops in that stream. I love streams. I wish I had more time to mess with them because they're so much fun to me. I mean, I grew up, I spent part of my teen years studying a river. And that's really, really what kicked in what I saw as a passion when I was 14 years old, where studying the fish in the Brazos River really gave me the fire and the flame that made me want to go learn all this stuff that I get to share with you guys. So I'm a big fan of streams, and I'm not quite sure how to answer that. Christopher Aguilar says his mom is a registered nurse and his son just graduated college as a nurse. COVID is not what the media wants us to believe. Well, there we go. There's a counter opinion. Peggy James, video is running fine on my wife's computer, not my desktop. Justin Shink, California Central Coast. Hey, that's pretty cool. Feed the fish. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Feed the fish. If you need a feeder, send me an email. I hope you get one. Jason Nepstad, do golden shiners school in open water? Do they have a place in larger lakes and ponds? I know they're nest raiders, but they tend to raid bluegill nests more than largemouth bass. They're nest raiders, period. And that happens when they gain an advantage. They're not so much open water fish as they are schooling fish that run in fairly shallow, fertile water. So they're going to come up and feed on plankton, and they're going to feed on insects. You know, they are predators, but they're limited by their mouth size. So golden shiners can be a pretty good way to diversify your food chain, depending where you are. All right, let's see here. Ryan Puckett has the same questions as Jason Nipstead. All right, well, you guys need to talk. Do they raid bluegill's nest more than largemouth? No, not necessarily. They're nest raiders, but the thing is bluegill tend to protect their nest a little bit better than largemouth bass do because they're more agile and they're more quick. Plus, they nest in colonies. You know, where largemouth bass nest solitary. So largemouth bass will build a nest by themselves about as big as a hubcap. And that nest might be in water 4 feet deep, might be in water 2 feet deep, might be on top of a stump, might be in a gravel bed, where bluegills tend to nest in a big colony. So all the different bluegill run in circles around their craters. They can have a tendency to fight those fish away. And at some point, those nest raiders will give up. All right, let's see here. Let's see what else we got here. It's already 7:08. Hey, $35 a year, Pond Boss Magazine. There it is right there. Holy cow, $35 a year. Glad to see Nicole Fletcher on here. We love Nicole. And Nicole worked for Pond Boss for several years, and she gave me a turning point. This is probably back in 2004 or 5. That's when I was trying to coax Dan Van Skyke, the wildlife biologist, to write for Pond Boss. I'm going to tell you this story because it's pretty funny. So Dan said, okay, I'm going to dictate my story on a cassette tape. Now, those of you that are older than about 40 probably know what a cassette tape is. Nobody else does. Well, he dictated it on a cassette tape, and I listened to it, and I kind of wanted to shoot myself in the back of the head because I didn't want to do that. So I gave that to Nicole, had to take a trip. I think I went to upstate New York for a few weeks or a few days, and said, hey, would you transcribe this into a Word document? Well, when I got back, I stepped in the door of the office, and she looked at me, and I saw the fire in her eyes. And she grabbed that cassette tape. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole. And she threw that cassette tape at me. She says, don't ever do that to me again. So that's when I told Dan he needed to buy some kind of device that he could talk to his computer that would write it down into a Word document. That's pretty funny. Chris Stillman, see Chris, good to see you. Calvin Perry, go forth, go looking to purchase some property near the Tyler, Texas area. Thinking of 20 acres with wanting to turn 5 to 10 into a bass spawn. What, in your opinion, are the most overlooked, incorrect mistakes that people make when they want to do this? They don't understand what it takes to build a lake. They don't understand the value of habitat. They don't know what it takes to really go through the process of building a lake. That's probably the number one problem, because it's, building a lake is a fun process as long as you know what you're getting into before you get into it. So making sure you got the right soils, you got the right contours, you got the right size watershed. Tyler, Texas is a great area. It's right on the cusp of where the water quality goes to heck. So as long as you understand, I went and looked at the lake kind of, I guess it was southeast of Tyler the other day. The pH of the water, the guy had the water checked, the pH was like 4.9. Fish can't reproduce in that water. And so if you understand water chemistry, you understand how to read a topo map, the biggest mistakes that people make when they're looking in a particular area is not looking at soil types, not looking at the watershed size, and not quite understanding the water chemistry in that area. And then they don't recognize the value of building the right kind of habitat to create the environment that they want. There you go. Let's see, Danny Mack. His little pond requires some bass as a police. All you need is get them a badge and they're in there for you. Ryan Puckett. I found that my family's 2.5 acre pond seems to have a number of golden shiners, some of which are the size of a decent sized brim. I've been curious whether or not they're high quality bait fish for bass. They are high quality bait fish for bass as long as you have enough bass to eat them. By the time a golden shiner heads 6 or 7 inches long, that's the maximum size it's going to reach. And by that time, there's an inherent parasite in golden shiners that it doesn't render them totally sterile, but by the time they get to be 3 or 4 or 5 years old, they're not having nearly as many eggs. A golden shiner's value is its ability to reproduce and add more bait fish to the system. So a full-grown golden shiner is valuable to a bass that's probably 15, 16, 17 inches long if you've got enough of them to eat those things. Zach Bollinger, I'd like to talk to you, Bob. Yeah, well, let's have a conversation. Send me an email, send me your phone number. I'll call you Friday when I'm traveling. Tomorrow I am booked. Andy Myers joined in. Let's see, Danny Mack, we loved walking up spring-fed streams on solid rock. Yep, Clark Cole. Bob, you know I work in a hospital. Let's see here. Clark worked for me a long time ago. He's a physical therapist. You know I work in a hospital in North Texas. He works, I think he's in Weatherford, Texas. Where I work, there's been no COVID-19 patients. Everyone who was admitted under suspicion of the test was tested negative, not one. All right, Zach McKenzie, any solar aeration systems worth buying? Yes, there are. Call me, we'll talk about that. Look at Outdoor Water Solutions. That's one. Chris Blood, Texas Hunter Magazine. Now, I tell you, I love Texas Hunter. They are, to me, the very best feeder company on the market. I love their customer service. I love the product. They're highly responsive. You're going to pay for a Texas Hunter feeder, but you're going to get what you pay for. It's well worth it. Let's see here. Clark Cole knows somebody that got the disease and recovered. Chuck Brinkman, listening to the podcast while catching bluegill. Wish I could share some pictures, but let's see here. It's scrolling by me. But I've been pouring the coals when it comes to the feed, and it's showing. Now, Chuck, I'm going to give you one word of caution. Reel in your pole and sit still a minute, dog. Listen to me. You can feed your fish so well that you can kill them with kindness. Harold Arms made that statement to me a long time ago. It stuck. You need to be sure that your water quality is not deteriorating. Feeding the fish heavily is great as long as they're eating it and that the pond is able to process the byproducts of feeding those fish. So I'm going to caution everybody out there. It's great to feed the fish. It's great to grow fish. But your pond is also, it's going to be the septic tank. Which I don't like using that word, but that's the truth. The water's got to process the waste that are produced by the fish that you're feeding. So keep in mind, let's just be conservative and say that it takes 2 pounds of feed to grow 1 pound of fish. That means there's a pound of feed that turns into waste. The pond's got to process that waste. And of course, over where Chuck is, he's been getting abundant rain, which flushes the pond. But when that stops, you really need to be thinking about your water quality and manage your feeding program based on what your water quality is going to tell you. Let's see here. Holy cow, things are going crazy here. Robbie Old, good to see you. Robbie, I don't remember seeing you on there. Glad you're here, buddy. Chris Fergoni, could crappie ever be the main predator in a 2.5 acre pumpkin seed pond? Sure. If you're willing to pay the price on dealing with them and their tendency to overpopulate, they have a small mouth. So, I mean, I could see where pumpkin seeds could outgrow their usefulness. So your crappie pond could actually turn into a pumpkin seed pond. But if you're really conscientious about the way that you manage that, sure, I don't see any reason why you can't do it. I mean, give it a whirl and figure it out. You know, 2.5 acre pond, it's easy to change. If it isn't working, you can change it. Look at there, Jim Morgan, Dr. Jim Morgan, Preacher Man, Richmond Mill Lake, Kingfisher Society. Check out Kingfisher Society, guys. I know he's social distancing, but he's doing it from a boat. Tim Stewart, check out the Bama Bass YouTube channel. The bass spawned, female guarded the nest, but after a few days, the bluegill had worn her out and she left. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, one of the problems with bass lakes is the bass have a tendency to overpopulate. And I have actually purposely stocked lakes with too many bluegill in the hopes that bluegill would drive the females off the bed to minimize reproduction so we don't have to deal with culling so many bass. It's way better to me to be able to come in and stock the number of bass that you need to recruit into the system rather than having to go out and cull fish that God knows how big they might get or might not get, and knowing that we're not going to cull enough. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Actually, I think that can be a good thing. Eric Avery, hey Bob, can an 80% relative weight bass during the first 3 years ever likely meet their real potential on playing catch-up in a sand pit? Okay, listen to me, kids. No, can't happen. Can't happen. If a bass hits 80% relative weight, that means it's deteriorated to that point. So if you've got an 80% relative weight bass, take it out. And it will soon be replaced by a younger bass that can catch up and pass it within about 18 months to 2 years, depending on how big it is. You know, if you catch a bass with a relative weight of 80%, it weighs 2 pounds, the young bass coming up the pipe are 2 years away from passing that bass anyway. And it's taking up space eating food. 80% relative weight, take it out. If it's 85% or smaller, odds are high that that bass will have a hard time catching up, and it cannot achieve its potential. That's about as definitive as I can get, guys. Peggy James, rainbow trout. Okay, there's David Vanderheider checking in from San Antonio. Yeah, we do have a good size audience tonight. There's 54 right now. I think our top was like 65. Let's see here. Christopher Aguilar. Yep, boudin. I love boudin. I got some in the freezer. I need to eat it. William Burgess. Yep. Bob, great magazine. Always look forward to the Resources magazine each year. It's a big help plus handy since everything is in one mag. Case in point, 2 years ago, I purchased a windmill from Outdoor Water Solutions and wanted a little backup when the wind's not blowing. I work pipeline, not home much. Called last week to see if they could get an electrical aerator out ASAP because I was going to be home in a few days. Delivered yesterday. Began installing it. You know what? That's one of my favorite things about our advertisers. They're highly reputable, highly responsive. And if they're not, I want to hear about it. I'm going to call them and tell them and get on them. And I've done that several times, even this last week. I've had one person that's advertised with us a long time that wasn't as responsive as the customer thought they should be. I got on the phone, they called them right then. Which, I don't know that I carry that much weight, but I'd like to think that I do. Danny Mack, I got a few large golden shiners. They swim around as light, which is fun to watch. Chris Blood, hey Bob, is there a good habitat to install for golden shiners? You know what, Chris? Golden shiners, they stick their eggs on grass. So, in the old days, I don't know how the shiner farms do it now, but they used to use dehusked Spanish moss and mats that looked like the mats the filters that used to be in the swamp coolers in the hot part of the country. So in other words, they love to stick their eggs on bushy pondweed, or if during spawning season in the spring for golden shiners, I tell people to go buy some coastal Bermuda hay, square bells, break them up, throw them in the water, and those Threadfins will spawn, but so will the shiners. And shiners are they're predator fish, limited by mouth size. As a matter of fact, there's an article Mark Cornwell wrote coming up in the July-August issue of Pond Boss. If you're not a subscriber, you need to do it. Just for that article coming up, it's going to tell you about golden shiners. Golden shiners live in schools of like-sized fish. They're quick. They can get away. That's how they can survive so well. You know, so the kind of habitat that they like open water, but they like shallow open water. But they'll move around and they'll dig around in the mud a little bit. They'll graze off of aquatic plants, bushy pondweed, American pondweed, things like that. Let's see. Chris Horsley has a fertilizer question. I have a fertilizer answer. W.C. Thurman checking in. I think he's from Kansas. Sam Rodriguez, tennis coach, one of our favorite teachers that taught our kids. Mike Dower has a 1 acre pond, supplements bred and pellet raised bass with Aquamax. He has a few 18 to 20 inch bass, but seem to have a large number of 8 to 10 inch bluegill. What should I cull and how much to benefit the bass most? On culling bluegill, cull the smaller sizes. Leave those 8 to 10 inch bluegill in there. Keep feed those guys Aquamax MVP. If you're feeding your feed train largemouth bass and you can feed them by hand, buy some Aquamax largemouth. Those pellets are about as big as the end of your thumb. So a lot better nutrition for the bass. And feed those by hand so you can see how much they'll eat. But if you want to cull a few bluegill, don't take those 8 to 10 inch bluegill. Take some that are 5 to 7 inches. Let's see here. Chris Blood says, Bob, thanks for sharing your knowledge. I love you, Chris Blood. And my wife does too, because I never promote myself. And Chris reminds me to do that from time to time. How does somebody contact you to hire you to come out and do a lake management plan? If you want me to help you, I am in. You know, I'm not retired, not semi-retired, but I do have time and I love to help people. So for a consulting fee, I'll help you design a new lake. I will help you create a management strategy. I'll help you seek out the best vendors, you know, lake management companies, fish suppliers, depending on where you are, and help you have some confidence in what it is that you're wanting to do with your game plan. I can help you figure out how to evaluate so you know where you are. I can help you design a strategy to get you moving forward. So if that's something you're interested in, I do that, and I do charge for it. So send me an email. If you want to send me an email personally, tell you what, just send it to info@pondboss.com. I'll get it. And if I can't help you, I'll refer somebody that can. Chris Horsley, I put in 10 gallons of a liquid fertilizer on April 25th. The water did not change. 3 weeks later, I put 25 pounds of perfect pond plus granular. Still no color change, but my bladderwort's growing fast. What did I do wrong? The only thing that might have been done wrong is, let's see, 10 gallons of a liquid fertilizer. You didn't say what kind of liquid fertilizer it is. I'm going to presume that it's a pond fertilizer with high phosphorus. 10 gallons, let's see, 10 gallons, that would be 130 pounds of that, which would be 1034.0, which would be about 30 pounds of phosphorus. The watercolor didn't change. You know what? The only thing I can think about right there is the chemistry of the water. Your alkalinity may be too low, because that's enough fertilizer. You should have seen a change. So if you know what your alkalinity is, your alkalinity needs to be at least 20 parts per million or higher, preferably 40 parts per million or higher. And if that's the case, then you should see a color change. And when you say bladderwort, that is a sure sign that your water is acidic and that your alkalinity is low. If that's the case, you need lime. Now, before you do that, let's have a conversation, because if you go add lime and you ramp up your alkalinity, you could see a plankton bloom hit you that you don't want to deal with that much fertilizer. I would just, you know what, the more I think about it here quickly, that's the problem. Your alkalinity is too low, because bladderwort doesn't grow in water with high alkalinity. Calvin Perry Goforth, 5 or 6 years ago, Bassmasters Magazine ran an article called the La Perla Experiment, which, as you probably know, was run by a locale. You know what? Here's the deal. Whatever became of it, and what's your opinion of their efforts? All right. Well, that is Gary Schwartz. I designed those lakes. You know, Lo Chow can take all the credit they want for managing, because they did. But I designed those lakes with Dr. Schwartz. And it's really a long story that I don't have time to tell. I think that the prawns were a great idea. I also think they were a supplemental food. That whole system that's tied together, because Gary added water each year as he could because he's got pumping rights to the Rio Grande River. And golly, I think I've written about it. Matter of fact, I know I've written about this. He was on the cover of Pond Boss a few years ago, but I intimately know that situation. I think the prawns were an outstanding value-added benefit to those lakes, or that lake system. And actually, so much, I wrote about it in Pond Boss in the May-June issue. So if any of you are interested in those freshwater prawns, send me a note, and I'm going to tell you how to get them, and we can figure that out. Let's see here. Whatever became of it, I think Gary, he hasn't spent the money the last couple of years because he's had other priorities, but it's not because he doesn't want to. Jim Morgan, no customers this spring, so we went out fishing in the pouring rain and killed it. 2 5-pound females still full of eggs. Thought good things about Bob Lusk. A toast to Jim Morgan. Here we go. Coca-Cola. Good stuff. Wow, 7:26 and I'm way behind. Jake Willard, I just started weighing and measuring my bass. Is it possible that my bass stunted at a certain length? Yes. Now, stunted means that their growth is arrested. Doesn't mean that they can't grow beyond that. But their final potential is probably limited depending on how long they've been small. If a 12-inch bass is 12 ounces, but a 15-inch bass isn't a healthy weight, how will I know what size bass I should take out? Send me an email. I will send you a relative weight chart, or better yet, you can go to Wade Bale's Smart Fish app. Look up Smart Fish app, and you can plug your fish lengths and weights into that app, and it will immediately tell you the relative weight. If your relative weight's 85 or smaller or less, take it out. There's Jeremy Hamilton checking in. Jessica Frost checking in with my grandbabies. So, holy cow, I think I'm about to run out of time, and I don't know that I've gotten all these questions handled. Gee whiz, I'm kind of running out here. Danny Mack, are all commercial bass supposed to be feed trained? No. To prove they're not the spawn of wild bass? No, that's not true. Some fish hatcheries grow other fish. Hey, there's Donna McFarland. What if we forgot to harvest bass for 10 years? Is it too late? No, it's not too late. It's good. Study how to make ceviche, girl. Take some bass out. The bass that you need to take out in your lake, I know your lake, 14 inches and smaller, take some of those out. Great seeing you, my friend. Hey, we love you and Bob very much. We're the beneficiaries of your wisdom. You know what? You're the beneficiaries of your work. So that's great. Jake Carroll, I have a 3-year-old pond with stained and muddy water 75% of the time. How can you tell if you're overfeeding fish and degrading the water quality? I have 2 bottom aerators. Do the aerators help with? Yes, aerators absolutely do help with the water quality. A 3-year-old pond, you're not saying how big it is. If you're overfeeding the fish, the way you know that is that you're going to start seeing a heavier plankton bloom. You're going to see more plants growing. You're going to see fish behavior change. They're not going to be feeding as strong. There's Mike Cooper. Hey, Mike, good to see you right here at the end of this thing. We're talking about growing big fish. So, Jake, I'm going to tell you this. Aeration helps expedite the cleansing of water by moving it vertically if you're using bottom diffused aeration. So what that does is it takes your bottom water, all your water, and you move it in 1.5 acres. I'll tell you this, Jake, if you're feeding more than about 5 pounds of fish food per day, you're probably overdoing it for the long term. Now, you can feed as much as 25 or 30 pounds per day for a few days in a row if the fish eat it. But over a long period of time, if you're feeding more than about 5 pounds of fish food per day, that's probably too much. So you know what? We're going to start wrapping this up. For those of you that are gaining value out of this broadcast, I want to compel you to subscribe to Pond Boss Magazine. $35 a year. Well worth it. Well worth it. I promise you, you're going to get 2 or 3 nuggets out of each issue that's going to help you be a better pond meister and grow bigger fish and take care of your pond even better. So I'm going to start wrapping this things up. Don't forget, hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comments section. Click like, share this to your timeline. You're eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and the Pond Boss mug. One last question, I'm going to wrap it up. Look at here, Calvin Gofor says, thanks for all your help. One last question. If you wanted to manage a great bass lake of 5 to 10 acres, what would be the average cost involved annually managing a good bass lake? I'm going to tell you $4,000. That $4,000 is going to go toward an electrofishing survey. It's going to go toward fish food. It's going to go toward water chemistry. It's going to go toward aquatic plant management. You know, and I just picked that number out of my head, $4,000. It may be less than that if you're pretty intense with the way that you manage things. So hey, at 7:30, oh gosh, holy cow, Robert Hudson, do you recommend never add hydrated lime? If you want to add lime to a pond that needs it, add ag lime, calcium carbonate. You can kill fish with hydrated lime. So let's see, a 2-acre pond for fertilization, added 5 tons of ag lime. Is recommended. We got a lot of rain runoff. Nope, don't add any hydrated lime. Bad choice. Hey, 7:30. Time to check out. Chris Blood, thanks for putting the tag in there. And Mike Dower subscribed. Hey, it's really been fun hanging out with you guys. You guys keep it a fast-paced thing. I love all your questions. I appreciate hanging out with you. And I don't know where I'll be next Wednesday, but wherever I am, we're going to try to do this. So, adios. Pretty soon. See you. Hey, Kelly Duffy. Tick-tock, tick-tick. Yep, I'm going to refill my drink. So, Kelly, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Everybody else, I will see you next Wednesday. Appreciate you tuning in.